Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this particular battle, I'm going to be playing Bretonnia, and I'm going to be facing off against the vampire counts. So definitely some spooky, scary action coming my way, and probably some zombie spam, but hopefully the boys will be able to deal with it. So as far as my army composition goes, I have a front line of men-at-arms with polearms. These guys are essentially the Swiss Army knife of Bretonnia against the vampire counts. They have armor piercing, so on that coin, they can do pretty well against Graveguard, quote-unquote well. Graveguard obviously trade pretty effectively with them, considering they have pretty good stats, and then they also have an anti-infantry bonus. But still, these guys are probably the best choice as it pertains to Bretonnian infantry. But granted, as of now, maybe later in the month it'll be a little bit better. But right now we don't have much choice between, infantry. So we got men-at-arms with polearms and of course the spears. But these guys do have armor piercing. They have anti-large, so they can deal with cryptors quite well. And on top of that, they also have a charged defense against all, which is really, really nice. Cryptors aren't terribly popular in the Bretonnia matchup simply because all their infantry have spears and anti-large. But still, again, just having them just in case, they can deal with cav and just, a multitude of different threats. So aside from that, I have two spears in the back. Again, the shields aren't really great, and I only had 600 resources left at the end, so I just decided to get two of these rather than one of these, just so I could kind of cover. And these guys, again, trade okay with like cav and units like that. They do have 26 weapon strength, but they also have a bonus versus large of 15. So versus cav, they can actually hit pretty hard versus like Black Knights and Blood Knights and things like that. So on top of that, I do have three groups of peasant bowmen. And again, guys, the zombie spam is pretty real in this particular patch. So what I would suggest when using missiles is kind of spread them out a little bit. Of course, if you have the resources to protect them, you can get away with it. But put one group here, and one group here, for example. Because then when he, summons a group of zombies, he can either go in between, but still he's going to have to decide, and it makes it a little bit easier to fan out. So if he, gets a, group of zombies between you, you can run, both directions. And then that's also more distance that his lord has to travel to, get the zombie spam on one of those other groups. Whereas a lot of people I see kind of have these very tight missile formations, which are okay in some matchups, but here against the vampire counts, I definitely do not recommend it. So on top of that, I do actually have a group of Grail Knights. So these guys are just so freaking cool. Massive charge bonus of 82, extremely good stats, 40 melee defense, 42 weapon strength. They also do magic damage, which is pertinent in the vampire counts matchup against certain units. So just a awesome elite cav unit and very, very fun to use with the damsel. I like to kind of run them around together and then time that harmonic convergence, which let's go ahead and zoom in here and give you guys a nice look. So the harmonic convergence provides 36 melee defense and 34 melee attack. So when you buff and then get the damsel in there and follow up with King LOUEN and the paladins, you can just absolutely crush groups of enemy cav. So pretty solid stuff there. And that's pretty much it for my whole army, guys. As far as my opponent's army goes, he has two groups of Black Knights, and Black Knights are decent against Bretonnia. I mean, they're very low tier as it pertains to cav, but still they're armored, they're shielded. And you don't really need much weapon damage, nor do you need armor piercing really to deal with a lot of Bretonnian units. But still, the Grail Knights will definitely make mincemeat of these guys if I can catch them. And I do have these Pegasus Knights, and look how much faster they are. 105 move speed as it compares to 76. So pretty massive. The Grail Knights are pretty slow, about the same speed as these Black Knights, but still these Pegasus and King LOUEN are all upwards of 100. So they're going to be able to catch these guys if they're not careful. As far as his main army goes, he does have spears, which I like a lot, because again, Bretonnia is a faction known for cav and things like that, and can very effectively cycle charge and whatnot. So he does have skeleton spears in the back line. They are shielded with a nice anti-large bonus. And on top of that, he just has Graveguard in the front line. So very, very wise choice, in my opinion. Armored, shielded, anti-infantry, and they do have silver shield, so against Bretonnian peasant fire, they're very, very resilient. And they do have 38 weapon strength, which is quite high. And if you look at their bonus here, they do have a bonus versus infantry of 8. So against my Bretonnian infantry, they're definitely going to do some good work. But still, my guys have very high melee defense with about 40, and then also do have armor piercing themselves. So he has some zombies, and then over here he has an elite group. So he has some Blood Knights, he has a White King, and then he also has Manfred von Karstein. Actually not flying, which is pretty smart against Bretonnia, because again, if he had brought flying Manfred, this would be a very bad day. So without further ado, let's get right into the action. So thankfully I was able to take advantage of my speed and isolate these Black Knights, which was a really, really nice situation. So I get some decent shock damage on them, but my opponent decides to turn and fight with these two particular groups, and you can see he's kind of rushing over with the infantry, but still, this is a very, very bad situation because once these Grail Knights get in, and Manfred is so far away over there with his White King and his Blood Knights, so the Grail Knights are going to get in here, and they're going to get a nice little charge on the rear. You can see King LOUEN just being an absolute gangster right here, very thematic, and it's always cool to use Grail Knights. A lot of times people just use those peasant blobs, but anytime you can make these guys work, it's very, very rewarding in my opinion. So they get in there, and you can just see them chunking the HP of these Black Knights. Their leadership is down to -7 right now, and they're definitely going to start crumbling very, very quickly here. And the Pegasus Knights are so quick, and King LOUEN, that it's going to be tough for them to get away. So he does detach some spears and other units like this to try and, help him out. And as soon as he gets close, you just want to withdraw, because I've already gotten a huge tactical advantage here. I've taken a little bit of damage on my Pegasus Knights, and unfortunately for me, some of my Grail Knights as well as Pegasus Knights did kind of get trapped here, and they're probably going to get cut down. But still, I was able to do massive damage, and, there's essentially a group of crumbling Black Knights here. His White King took a bit of damage, and also this other group of Black Knights is very, very low. But still, he retaliated relatively well considering, how bad of an initial situation that was. And these Grail Knights are very expensive units, so having them trapped in here is very, very bad stuff. He does use an Invocation from Nehek as well. He waits for his whole army to get here and is going to get pretty decent value out of it. So right now we're just both kind of reforming our ranks, getting ready to go. And he also uses a Spirit Leech, interestingly enough. I was pretty surprised, but I guess he was really just trying to drive these guys off the battlefield and, do as much as he could essentially. So I am repositioning my Cav force over here. And again, these Grail Knights are very healthy, still have 40 models. So I was feeling pretty confident. And with the Harmonic Convergence and King LOUEN and the Sword of Couronne, I felt pretty confident that I could outtrade these Blood Knights, in a straight up engagement. And also Manfred isn't the tankiest of lords. He does have 110 armor, but still I feel like he goes down pretty quick to armor piercing. So if I'm able to get King LOUEN and a Curse of the Midnight Wind and some other stuff on him, I think we can put him in a trash can. So the Peasant Blob has engaged here, and essentially these guys are just going to need to buy me time because his infantry corps is actually pretty strong. He has the Sternsman and a lot of very heavy Graveguard in here, which are very, very tough for Bretonnia to deal with. So over here, I'm just kind of trying to chase him and corral him and get another engagement. I just wanted a really, really kind of a cataclysmic engagement on Manfred as well as these Blood Knights. But he is going around my flank, and thankfully I do have some Spearmen at Arms over here, and he is taking some Peasant Bowman fire. And though Peasant Bowmen have pretty poor armor piercing, it's kind of a volume thing. When they lay into something enough, they'll eventually get through it. So in the front line, the Peasants are doing an okay job. They're fighting against the Graveguard, and this is going to be a very slow, atrocious matchup. Graveguard have pretty low melee attack, actually. It's only 22. So when fighting against the men-at-arms with polearms, it's going to take them a little while to get through, as their melee defense is very high, and the rate of them actually making contact is going to be somewhat low here. So the Peasant Bowmen are pretty well protected, and this is ideal because now they're shooting into the Cav here. You can see the Pegasus Knights get a nice charge here onto these Blood Knights, and also I was able to get some Halberds over here. So these Halberds, and you can see the Sword of Couronne is going down, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty massive debuff on all of his troops here, and then the Curse of the Midnight Wind should be coming. Definitely a very scary situation for my opponent, but he does get some of these, I believe he got some Graveguard over here, some zombies or something. No, it was actually Manfred. So Manfred flew over here, and King LOUEN is just hunting him right now. And if King LOUEN's able to cut him down, you can see almost 2 or 3 auto attacks, and Manfred's in really bad shape. And that, again, is a testament to the strength of the Sword of Couronne, really lowering that melee defense and also really lowering that armor. But still, Manfred is getting the job done. He's summoning zombies back here, and I do have some spears on auxiliary to kind of help out, but still, these peasants are shut down for now. So very, very tough stuff. But I do have a healthy group here and a group here that can fire freely. Over here in this particular battle, you can see the Black Knights are just getting dumpstered. The Curse of the Midnight Wind, these two groups, they have 18 models, and this group has 4, and they're actually going to be crumbling very, very quickly. These Blood Knights are in okay shape, but still the Grail Knights are just such strong units. And they're doing pretty well here, considering they also have the leadership of a paladin in here. The damsel is a decent melee combatant. Let's go ahead and take a look at her stats if we can find her. I think she's in here somewhere. Anyways, I guess we'll look when we can find her later, but there she is right now. So let's go ahead and look. So she does have 285 weapon strength, which definitely isn't terrible, but, again, having these spears in here is just huge because a lot of his units are just pinned here. He has this whole group of Black Knights as well as his White King, which are just going to be in really bad shape. Over here, some of my peasants are being chased off by zombies, which is really tough, but, King LOUEN is definitely on the hunt, and he's doing a pretty good job, but Manfred is still getting around and just spamming those zombies, but still, keeping this perpetual pressure on him is making this a lot less comfortable for him. So, but the zombies have engaged with some of my spears here, which is fine. The spears should be able to get through them relatively shortly, and right now I'm just trying to fan out my peasants as much as I can and run them in opposite directions just to kind of wear those zombies down. And you can see I'm not taking a lot of losses, so if they do get worn down through just the dissipation that they have, again, that'll be a pretty good situation for me. And I do have a group of peasants here that are laying some fire into Manfred, which is really nice. And you can see Manfred makes a little bit of a mistake. He lands near these Grail Knights and these spears, and King LOUEN obviously is right on his 6. A little bit of awkward pathing. You can see he's kind of stuck right there. But still, Manfred is taking a beating. He does get the Curse of the Midnight Wind, and these Grail Knights are whomping on him a little bit. You can see his HP tanking really, really rapidly, actually. So he summons another group of zombies, but still he gets chunked by LOUEN, having a really bad time. And of course, this Paladin, I was able to actually pull out of the engagement, and hopefully it's going to be able to finish off Manfred here. And let's see if we can get a slow-mo slaying. That's always really fun. So the Paladin coming in deep from behind. Hopefully it's going to be able to get him. Let's go ahead and check, and he is crumbling. That rear charge does a ton of HP damage, bringing him down to 76, and then it looks like King LOUEN just goes in for the cock punch there and takes him off his mount. You can see Manfred falling amongst peasants. This is definitely not how he expected to go. So there's some Grail Knights and some peasants over there, probably going to stomp on him a little bit, having a good time. But still, a lot of the Vampire Count's front line is just massively advantageous for them. You can see my Halberds here essentially, wavering. Over here, he just overwhelmed me. That zombie spam in the back line, and these Graveguard were able to essentially just break my entire front line. So right now, there's a huge horde of Graveguard and zombies that I have to deal with. You can see some of my men-at-arms here are trapped, unfortunately, and they're fighting against zombies, but still, they have low armor, guys. They only have 30 armor, so even the pitiful stats of these zombies and the 18 weapon strength can eventually get through to them. Though they only have, 5 melee attacks, so the likelihood of them making contact isn't very great, but considering their numbers, it's still pretty tough. And another thing I want to point out that makes the zombie spam so strong is if you take a look at the leadership here. So when you're being attacked in the rear, it's a negative 14 on your leadership, which is massive. So summoning a group of zombies behind an infantry line, even against tanky infantry, is really, really, essential in routing them. So over here, I do have a group of Grail Knights that are fighting off some zombies, cutting through them. Also, my King LOUEN, I'm just trying to finish off all of his elite units. So against the vampire counts, that's kind of how you want to do it. You want to, obviously if they have a squishy, quote unquote, squishy lord like Manfred, you want to take him out and then work down the White Kings, kind of go down that way. But unless it's Vlad. I don't like to target Vlad. I always leave him for last. But, again, circumstantial. So I'm getting the Strand Your Ground here and using the Curse of the Midnight Wind and the Sword of Corone to help me finish with some of these, some Graveguard. And I really wanted to nuke that White King. So I used everything I had here. And now I have this big, healthy group here that I can kind of detach and start riding around. As far as my other troops, I do have some Peasant Bows coming back over here. I do have 2 Pegasus Knights coming back. I have some Halberds over here. My opponent doesn't have much, though. He does have these Blood Knights left here, but if you guys look at the balance of power, it's still, he doesn't have much elite or kind of leadership units left, is what I meant to say. He still actually has 900 troops to my 450, but he has a ton of Graveguard over here. He has a full group of 80 here, group of 88, so really in that front line. Those men-at-arms held, but again, they didn't really pack much of a punch. He did use a few good invocations of Nehek, which made a pretty substantial difference there. So, and over here, another group of Skeleton Spears and another group of Graveguard. So he just has so much left. So right now, I do have my big Peasant Blob that's just kind of pushing through. I do have a Paladin here, and also King LOUEN is very healthy, and King LOUEN is just going to womp on these guys. And also having these Grail Knights to be able to charge into the flank is just going to be massively devastating to these Graveguard here. So Grail Knights definitely get very, very scenic charges with their huge lances. They're getting in there, sending some of those Graveguard flying, but unfortunately, he does have some Skeleton Spears kind of mixed in here. So this was a really tough situation. You can see they're taking a little bit of HP damage, so I am immediately forced to pull back because, again, this was still a very close fight. And if you guys look, the balance of power, it's right down the pipe. I do have some some peasant bowmen coming out. They might as well be skeletons after that fight, but I do have some peasant bowmen coming out, doing a pretty good job applying some pressure to these Graveguard here. And again, I do have a pretty healthy core here, and if I didn't have my leadership units left, I would be pretty concerned. But still, with my leadership here, they're able to hold the line and push back these Graveguard. And you can see King LOUEN just being an absolute boss, just tearing these guys up. And again, a lot of them, the factors of these guys going down, and look at this, a group of 90 Stearnsmen is going to be breaking their leadership, getting rear charges. So you can see I'm just trying to ride around with my Grail Knights, but he's trailing me pretty aggressively with these Graveguard over here and also these Skeleton Spears. So right now I'm just trying to rear charge them and break their leadership with everything I have, because again, the crumbling is going to be much faster than actually having to work through a full health group of Stearnsmen. And you can see that rear charge right there just brings them to the status of critical binding and then crumbling on some of their units. So that was pretty good, but unfortunately for me, I do get sandwiched a little bit. He was very, very aggressive on chasing me and did a pretty good job. And also the Grail Knights are exhausted, so they're going to be moving. I'm pretty sure that does have a bit of a hit in terms of their speed or their mobility. So, again, they are exhausted. They're not, top notch right now, and they're definitely, struggling here in the fourth quarter. So King LOUEN doing a pretty good job, and you can see the leadership and all these other variables are doing, pretty good work at helping to crumble these Skeleton Spears and all these other bad boys over here. He does have a lot of troops left, though, so again, picking off that White King was essential. Picking off Manfred, of course, was the key to victory. But still, picking off that White King was really nice, because if he had a White King kind of saturated in the middle of this group and providing that encouragement and that, kind of the leadership buffs, it would have taken a long time to get through these guys, and they most certainly would not have crumbled so quickly. But thankfully, a lot of my peasants are coming back from route, and some of these Grail Knights are able to reform ranks, and these charges are really, really devastating to my opponent's leadership. And they're getting in there, and they have a massive charge bonus of almost 90. So at this point, you can see most of the vampire count troops are indeed, crumbling or, dissipating. So very, very good stuff. Very well played to my opponent. That was a super fun game. You can see King LOUEN up here just being an absolute thug. Very, very good stuff. He had a good time hunting Manfred, as you guys saw. So, just a few kind of hindsight in that game is keeping your peasant bows spread out like that was really nice, because you saw Manfred, he went to one group, summoned a zombie, and then he had to run to another group to summon another group, because the range is relatively short. So if you can keep them in kind of a spread out formation like that, it works out pretty well in my opinion. Wow, 200 kills on these guys. That's pretty incredible. But still, the Pegasus Knights definitely were a little bit, I guess they underperformed, but still they allowed me to catch those Black Knights in the beginning, which was pretty nice. As far as my opponent, I think it would have really helped if he had kept his Cav Corps together. Because again, Bretonnia is one of those factions that's going to try and isolate you with a flying goon squad. So if he had kept all those guys together, it would have been much harder for me to do that, and could have been a very, very different game. So Well played to my opponent, Lasfire. Hope you guys enjoyed that cast, and I look forward to seeing you again on Ladderbud, and more content coming soon, guys. I'll be streaming this Sunday, so stay tuned. Every Sunday, I'm actually going to be streaming 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's if you guys go to my new channel banner, I actually just made one. It actually has the details for it. So I'll also spontaneously be streaming throughout the week, probably some Friday nights and whatnot as well. So stay tuned, guys, and thanks again for watching. Have a great night.